Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride. Let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/132, and you can email me at the show, pedalshift@pedalshift.net, or call the voicemail hotline 202-930-1109. You can check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 132nd edition of the Pedalshift Project. My name is Tim Mooney, and this is going to be part 2 of Pedalshift Tour Journals, Volume 11, Oregon Coast Loop. Really excited to be sharing this edition with you. This is going to be focusing on days 2 and 3 of my Oregon Coast Loop bike tour. It started me off in Florence, Oregon, and ended up just outside of Port Orford, Oregon. And it included some stunning coastline, a big bridge to North Bend, unusual headwinds for this time of year, an odd late night experience at a rather disappointing campground, and my favorite climb of the entire coast, and a whole lot more than that. Most of the journal speaks for itself, as they always do, but I'll be coming in from time to time, at least on one occasion on this, to give some additional context on top of or around stuff I recorded in the field. Also, remember, audio quality jumps around depending on the wind, the mic conditions, and things like that. Let's jump in. I'm just outside of Honeyman State Park, and I passed by one of those kind of ubiquitous beachy flags. You know, they're maybe 8-10 feet tall, and they're a great indicator because they're on the roadside of which way the wind is blowing. And of course I'm getting a freaking headwind again, which is so unusual southbound. I'm just hoping that on Monday I get the benefit of this, but I think you know what's going to happen too. So be it. Just leaving Reedsport right now, climbing out. If you hear me huffing and puffing. Traffic is not as bad as I expected. I thought that it would thicken up. Now, it still is just a little after 11 a.m., so maybe I shouldn't talk too much. But I think that the overall ride has been excellent so far. Beautiful views. One more thing I wanted to mention about my setup in the bike and mechanicals and all the usual stuff that I talk about is how easy riding it's been. And I know I've ascribed it to a few different possibilities, but it's interesting comparing climbs to climbs on the pass. And I've got an intersection here, so get through that. So the climb that is south of Florence, it's not bad. It's there. It's one of the larger climbs of the day. But man, I zoomed up it, and I stopped probably the only times I stopped were for filming, or I went through another Cliff Bar. I had one in camp and I had a second one. So it's interesting. I think my body munches up these cheap carbs, as I'll call them, sugary stuff. So I think my caloric needs were higher just because I've been so carbolicious. For dinner, I had pretzels, for crying out loud, and a beer. So I think I'm just noticing stuff. I like, again, I'm not sure if I can ascribe the things to this, but I've got another, as I'm leaving here, leaving Reedsport, there's another pretty big climb in Newton. If I'm not mistaken, this one's bigger than the one I just did. So we'll see if this all holds. I had my mid-morning / late breakfast, which has really worked well for me. Yesterday, of course, I did the sub. Today I did some breakfast burritos and some hash browns. So this hill I remember really well. Riding, I think it was a ride with Mysterious James, and there was a group that we sort of hopscotched a lot. And I remember being very frustrated because it felt like they were so much faster than me. And I remember the visual that I left them behind. It felt like an hour ahead or something like that. And at this very point where I'm at right now, I remember getting passed by all of them and just thinking, they are going the speed of light compared to me. And I think that it's always a good reminder that everyone rides their own ride. And I think this hill always reminds me of that. So, next stop, probably the north side of the Coos Bay North Bend Bridge, just because that's where I usually like to stop. Just on the other side of the bay from North Bend and Coos Bay, I have just banged out about 20 miles from Reedsport, give or take. Maybe it's a little bit less than that, but just banged it out. The riding, despite having, again, a headwind for portions of it, I'm really looking forward to that being potentially a tailwind on my long day when I go northbound. We'll see. But it's been a really beautiful day, nice and just warm enough, just cool enough, just perfect riding conditions. And I'm cutting through the headwinds when they're there, not noticing much of a tailwind to the extent that there's any of that. Sometimes I've done this ride. That's a really hot, sun-soaked portion of the ride, and it's been just overcast enough. I think the sun may be peeking out a little bit later today, which is fine, because there's not a ton of riding to go. It's basically up and over that bridge, which again, it's funny. I say it's kind of the big bad of the whole day. It's not that bad. It's just that sometimes when I'm at this point, I am dead tired and I need to take an extended break. I almost consider not even stopping on this one because I feel fresh. I feel good. So the more I'm riding, the more I'm feeling like that Monday northbound is definitely going to be not a problem. I'm sure I'll be tired. I'm sure it'll take something out of me, but I think I'll be all right. In the background, you may be hearing some rum-rums going on, and they are sand dune buggies that are pretty ubiquitous during the summer here in this part of the state. Of course, we're still in the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area. It pretty much peters out at this point, although there are more dunes south of here, most notably down in the Bandon area, which I'll be getting to tomorrow after doing the Seven Devils. So, it's interesting. It's not my bag. It looks like it could be fun in some ways, but, I don't know. Maybe it's just not my bag, to each their own. But it is interesting because I feel like there's a little cultural divide between folks who like doing dune buggies and folks who don't. And, to each their own, man, do what you need to do. That is about it in terms of things right now. I brought stuff to eat, but I'm not super hungry, so I think I might just kind of rest a little bit and maybe nibble at something before tackling that bridge. It's steep-ish. It's not as steep as, say, the bridge over the Columbia as I'm sitting here looking at it, but it's long, and I have to get into a low gear to get up it. A lot of debris, and that's just basically how it is. It's otherwise not that big of a deal. It's really long on the far side of it as well because it goes over the bay and on a low-level span. This is the span that allows ships to go over, which is why it's a pretty high climb to get up and over. But in any event, enjoy the dulcet tones of sand buggies. Of course, now they stop, right? Sunset Bay State Park. Unfortunately, it's still the garbage site. They did not replace it. I think I was misinformed or lightly informed or something last fall. It's behind the fish station, which is not ideal. It's also small and has very few great flat spots. There's a lot of kind of garbagey spots in there. I'm using that word garbage a lot, sorry. Lots of people I think are going to be here tonight. I'm already seeing faces I haven't seen, and it's going to be a tight fit, I have a funny feeling. So I think that's too bad because my recollection of this spot in the past is that it's a very social spot, and the new site doesn't really lend itself to that. Before, it was sort of tucked back in this grassy area, and it was huge, and it was welcoming, and it was nice. I remember seeing deer there one time. And now it's tight, it's crowded, there's dogs barking everywhere. It's mayhem. What can I say? The beach is beautiful. I'm actually parked away from the campsite because there's so many people there, and looking out on this beautiful rock with dead trees on it. That sounds worse than it is, but it's kind of pretty. Tide's out. It looks like it might be coming back in, so there's some folks out there who are digging in the mud, maybe getting some dinner for themselves tonight. I'm going to be having a nice salad. I have an avocado. I've got, what else do I have? A sugary treat, which I'll probably regret, one of those dollar apple pies. Yeah, no cell phone signal of any kind here. You have to kind of bike up a hill to get back to any kind of modicum of one. So that's kind of a bummer. I, promised my girlfriend that I would send her a message and we'd go back to a signal, and I did. And I think that she was doing some hand calligraphy with a friend tonight. So I was able to at least say, yo, good night. I'll talk to you tomorrow, which is good. Beautiful spot. I just wish that the campsite was better. This is a well-traveled one. It's the spacing on it is really good. It's right before the Seven Devils if you're southbound. I wish that it would be more accommodating, but you know what? They know better than me the demand that they typically get. So if this is enough to meet that demand, then so be it. No charging stations. It's an old car camping spot, so it's got an outlet, which is fine and nice. I would charge it up a little bit there. But I have to say that a little more disappointing with this one. I'm wondering if maybe at some point in the future I may look to see if there's alternative options to this park, because it's not the same. And I hate to be like that dude who's like, dude, their first album and their second album, I like their old stuff. I'm kind of feeling that way about this park. Sunset Bay. Riding was good. Riding was actually great. I'm feeling very strong, feeling very good. Bike's handling things well. Tons of headwinds, cut right through them. Feel like I'm a broken record on all of that, but it's going well. Sun came out, I would say middle of the day, and that was fine. I'm glad I had my sun sleeves on this time, though. I got way too much sun on the first day because I didn't wear them. It's one of those things where you think you're cold and you don't need the sun. The sunshades are actually kind of a cooling thing, even when you're out of the sun. And so I kept them off. The sun came out and I was like, oh, it's no big deal. I'm almost there. But, almost there is still a couple hours. A couple hours of sun on my arms. I got too much sun. So we'll be wearing those for the rest of the time, no matter what, whether it's cloudy or not. I think that's about it. It was a great day. I think this was the first day where I felt really into it. And I'm excited to tackle the Devils tomorrow, get through Bandon and all those places, and going to Humbug, which is just a glorious spot and just a beautiful area. So I'm looking forward to a good ride tomorrow, more challenging ride tomorrow, and a nicer campsite, just between you and me.
The following screams are simulated.
Well, just to make this extra special, the 11 p.m. and there are screams from the other side of the camp, and there's people freaking out, and I don't even know what's going on. Dude. It doesn't seem to be anything but dude. So apparently there were some girls in the women's bathroom, and I'm just hearing this literally at the site next door with the camp host, and there was somebody there that caused them to scream. It is very unclear. Literally nobody knows what's going on. However, everybody's fucking awake now. Good Lord. Apparently the police are being called. It is still unclear why. Obviously these kids were frightened, but nobody seems to know why. So, yeah.
Good morning from just outside of Sunset Bay State Park. Last night was really funny. Well, I don't know if I would call that funny, but it feels like it was a massive overreaction. I still don't have all of the details, but seems pretty clear that whatever happened was a gigantic overreaction. I think that some kids were freaked out over something, and then however they relayed their fears of the blood-curdling screams that they gave out from the bathroom, I think that adults thought that there was an intruder or something, and then it was just a fascinating thing. I stayed in my tent, but listening to this ridiculous game of telephone that must have gone on, like people were up and talking really loudly and stuff like that, and it was just, there was the heroes that were trying to be the heroes, and then there were the gossips. It was a very strange 45 minutes or so. And ultimately, I think, and cops came and everything. I think ultimately it really wasn't anything. I just don't know. I mean, obviously the kids were scared out of their minds for a reason, but it's a campsite, it's night. They were in a strange place. Whatever it was, interesting. So, but it was also an interesting thing because it reminded me, this is the same campground where I had a battery stolen from me years ago. The second or third time I was there. I was dumb. I kept it in the bathroom plugged in, and you can do that at some places, but this one, everybody's a little more on top of each other. And all of the amenities are okay, and the beach is really nice. I just feel like it's a notch below other Oregon parks. Interestingly, they charge you $1 less. So I don't know if that's by design or whatever, but in any event, the hiker-biker is small. I talked about that, and there's roots everywhere. There's not very much level ground. But it was funny because I was talking to a woman who I think she is not of American descent. She might be Belgian or French. I think she's been in the States long enough that her accent has Americanized a little bit. So it's hard for me to tell, and I didn't ask. She was like, "Oh, this is a great place," and it was just interesting seeing people's frame of reference. It's like how your day goes and how your evening goes is part of it, I think. But in any event, I'm gonna maybe look at rejiggering the ride a little bit and just trying something else for the overnight at this stage of any future Oregon Coast tours. Just to see if there's something better. Spacing of it is pretty great, though. I mean, I'm less than 2 miles away from the beginning of the Seven Devils, which I'm riding to right now. And that's a real benefit. There are some private campgrounds elsewhere that I could take a look at, but there's also, I suppose, staying at an Airbnb or something like that in Coos Bay or in Charleston, which is this teeny little town which has really grown quite a bit. Used to be, or at least maybe it's just economically rebounded a little bit, or the last couple of times maybe I wasn't coming through during prime time. It could be any of a variety of these reasons. But the fun thing is, like I said, the Seven Devils, which I've talked about many, many times in past tour journals, on the pod itself. It's a series of 7 summits after a fairly steep climb. The book, the Cycling the Pacific Coast book, suggests that I swear they've edited this. I think that before they said it was the steepest incline in the entire Oregon portion. The story of this trip is headwinds and the lack of me caring. Other than me mentioning it all the time. I'm just noticing them because they're so unusual and going in the directions that I'm going. I guess that the direction I may be going northbound right now for a short period of time, backtracking a bit back towards the Seven Devils Road. Yeah, I'm hoping for kind of a quick boom, boom, boom down to Bandon and then get my mid-morning breakfast slash lunch slash whatever's looking good, that has been a nice model for me over the last several days. And I look forward to repeating it. I have, as I've mentioned, I'm not bringing a cook kit, not making coffee. So what I'm doing in the morning is taking caffeine pills, hydrating, and then having bars, basically. And trying to stay kind of on the light side with that, so that I feel a little more energetic and ready to roll. And then I really fill up mid-morning, and boy, I tell you, that's been powering me through quite nicely. So I think the downside to this theory is Seven Devils is a lot of energy output, especially early. So I've had 2 very sugary bars, which, as you know, I'm not normally a fan of, but I'm trying to get some stuff in me. I've got a thing of nuts and a leftover soft pretzel as well. So I have things. Whether any of them will appeal to me, we'll have to see. I also have the last bit of a watered-down grape Gatorade from yesterday. So I think that will help getting me through the early, very steep stages. I've not gone into my first chainring yet on this entire trip, largely because the climbs are... I'm not saying it's definitely not flat, but the climbs have not been tough. I've been in my lowest gear for my middle chainring on many occasions, but that's been perfectly fine. I know for sure I'm going to have to go down to the lowest possible gear for the upcoming climb, just because it's steep, short, but steep. So that's it. More maybe in Bandon. Bandon, Oregon. I have taken a kind of a extended lunch break as I've been kind of mulling over my options over the next few days and taking a break after the Seven Devils, which were a little tougher than they have been on me in the past. I think maybe I didn't have enough calories going into it or whatever. Maybe the headwinds that I hit were part of it as well. But I think I've decided, I know I've decided because I put in the request, that I'm going to take an extra day. Boo-hoo, right? Extending my tour rather than cutting it off. I just think that the Monday plan that I had was a little more aggressive than it needed to be. Going on a long bus ride followed by the longest day riding, when I'm normally a get up on the early side and knock out my miles and be done early kind of guy, it just didn't feel right, and it wasn't feeling right as I was riding, and I think it was starting to weigh on me. And so rather than find myself in the middle of a 73-mile day going, this is a sufferfest, and then having to swallow the Airbnb, I decided to put in a request to shift it a day. They do have availability. I don't think I've never had a problem where a request to shift a day has not been honored. So we'll see how that goes. I assume it's going to go through. And what that ends up doing is it allows me to do the bus ride on Monday, get up to Coos Bay, and then I've got some options. Either I can take a zero, really unlikely, or I can eat into that 70-some-odd mile day by going northbound for at least some or some chunk of it. The options would be going up to, there's Tugman State Park, there's Umpqua Lighthouse State Park, which I think is the most interesting of them, or going all the way up to Honeyman and being just south of Florence. That would make that would be the furthest that would make any sense. That would be almost all the way. I think I would only have 13 or 20, some very short day the following day. And if I got all the way up there and was fine, I think I would end up saying to myself, maybe I didn't need to shift it. But having all of those options, they're all hiker-biker. I'm just going to make sure I know which are the Oregon State Park hiker-biker options. I think doing any mileage at all on the Monday would make my Tuesday that much better. I'll stay Tuesday to Wednesday, and then on Wednesday I'll do my kind of magical mystery tour of the 4-bus route up. That gives me an afternoon and an evening to hang out with my family one more night, and then off I go back east on Thursday. So I think that would also give me enough time to just sort of take the bike apart in the evening after, we're all ready to go to bed, and be ready to go in the morning, because I think I've got the early flight. I should check that. But in any event, that's sort of the new plan. And I think it's going to allow me to enjoy the next couple of days a little bit more, because the further south I go, the more it's been weighing on me. Even though I'm already past the point of no return in that sense. The bus doesn't run on weekends. It is a Saturday. At least the bus down on this part of the coast. So, I have the whole weekend to bike, and there's no good reason not to continue south, because I can grab that bus from the border on Monday, basically. So I think, that's just sort of how it's going to end up working out, and it'll be great. So I'm excited about that. I have a full belly right now. Got some calories surging into my brain. And I think I'm going to maybe enjoy Bandon a little bit more. I've got basically 3 hours of cycling to go between here and the park. The park's a beautiful park, and right before it is Port Orford, which has some shopping and the ability to get on Wi-Fi and a few other things as well. So it should be all good. Looking forward to continuing today. It's a beautiful day. It's very sunny. I kind of wish the fog would roll in, but it doesn't look like it's going to be happening. All right. Plans shifted, but for the better. Outside the public library in Port Orford, Oregon. Hot and sunny ride today, even though the overall temperature hasn't dipped below 65, I'd say. But the sun is so strong. I really am trying to cover up as much as I can. And as you all know, not a fan of the sunny rides. That's fine, and I'm still enjoying it. Today's route is awesome in the front half, and then it's sort of not so much until you get to about Port Orford. It's the terrain is not challenging, but it's very exposed to the sun when there is sun like today, and it is inland a bit, so you don't get to see as much. It's just not as nice as you would like. But now I get a beautiful ocean view as I get to the end of the road here as 101 turns. And things get a lot more interesting and fun as you climb up towards Humbug Mountain, which is my end of the night kind of place. So, of course, I forgot to mention one very important thing, and that is I lost my mirror. Somewhere when I did a water stop, I must have lost it. I looked down and I was like, no more mirror. It's too bad. But there's a bike shop in Brookings, so I might be able to replace it there. I'd like to have it back. It's helpful. I've used it quite a bit. I really like the setup, but I will definitely do a better job of making sure that it's cinched down, because obviously it has a tendency to fall off. So there's that. But off to Humbug Mountain with, I got my groceries, I got my beer, all set to go, and looking forward to getting into camp and enjoying a nice chill night. And tomorrow is the border run, which is kind of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Oh, also, I got to confirm that my Airbnb got moved with no charge and no change. So that's really excellent. So extra day, looking forward to that. And that is now freeing me up to figure out where do I want to camp for that extra night. And I'm looking at Umpqua Lighthouse as a possibility. So possibilities are not endless, but they're plentiful, which is good. And it will be a new to me spot. So excited about that. Unless, of course, I'm just banging out the miles and decide to go back to Honeyman, which is possible, but I probably wouldn't want to do that. So we'll see. We'll have to check the mileage out, how much I want to do on which day, and then go from there. Good evening from Humbug Mountain State Park, the overflow area. This is the first time there's ever been so many bikers, and presumably some hikers, that I've ever not been in the primary hiker-biker campsite. And frankly, there's quite a few of us. There are 1, 2, 3, there's at least 6 of us in the overflow area. The nice thing is that it seems like there's a whole bunch of these folks who are going to be in Harris Beach tomorrow along with me. Many of whom are going to LA, many of whom are, or one of whom is actually going to be going all the way to the border, 2014 style like I did. So that's pretty cool. So there's a lot of fun stuff, mostly international. One guy from the U.S., but everybody else from different countries. And that's been kind of cool. Really fun conversation tonight. I think that we'll probably have some beers tomorrow night. So that should be kind of fun. It's always fun to kind of like find a group that you vibe with. And what's interesting is different experiences, different points of view, different cycling experience. The American guy did the Trans Am. Swedish guy, it's his first time. A Dutch couple. It's just that are older, so it like runs the gamut of age, experience, and stuff like that. So that's an invigorating thing for me to experience on a bike tour. The ride today was great, and then great, and that's what this day is all about. The day begins going out of the wonderful, wonderful Sunset Bay area, which I'm being ironic because I did not have a great experience. But the Seven Devils were next, and I just love the Seven Devils. I talk about that a lot. It's steep, it's stupid, it's fun, it's a roller coaster. It's, I think, one of my favorite parts of the Oregon ride. I talk about it a lot. I think it's kind of cemented as my favorite now. I like that. After that, you end up in Bandon. I have to remember, I'm always starving when I get into Bandon, and there's always this Subway that's like the first thing there, and I need to not go to that Subway. No disrespect to Subway or your sandwiches. They're fine. They're great. They're calorie bombs. Excellent. There's so much more going on in the city of Bandon. The old area is great. For the first time ever cycling the Oregon coast, I always take 101 and skip this beautiful scenic part. And it's amazing. And then it kind of sucks because you're going away from the coast, but you're at least paralleling it. It probably adds maybe a mile or maybe two to it. But what a beautiful, beautiful bunch of sights that you get. I got pictures of the lighthouse. It's just really great. Bandon seems to be an excellent place to hang out in. And I'm glad I got a chance to do more this trip than I have in past. Frankly, because I just said to myself, I'm going to take the time to do it. It was a little too sunny for my taste today. That's just how I am. I prefer the cloudy and the foggy. I've talked about that for years on the show. It just takes a little bit more out of me. So I feel like I got more tired more quickly because of the sun exposure. Tried to cover up as best as I could. It worked only so much. So be it. The ride after Bandon is utilitarian. There's some cranberry bogs, you may recall from past rides that I did a live show, I think. I did a Facebook Live from one once when those cranberries were showing. Now they wasn't even worth a picture at this point. But it's kind of that's interesting. The rest of the ride is sort of whatever. The little towns that I went through are fine. Nothing super exciting. And then you get to Port Orford, and I was able to get some groceries, and then you were just rewarded for the hard work of the Seven Devils, as enjoyable as that is and as great as that is. But the view, I have to say, of all of the views in the state of Oregon, Port Orford may be the best one. And as you go through the town, it's sort of like, oh, okay, well, this is just another town. And then you see this beautiful hill that's in front of you. And 101 turns to the left from that, but on the pavement it says Ocean View and a big arrow up. And yes, you can go up that and go check that out, but I would implore you not to bother because so much more is coming. So if you go up, you turn left, and then all of a sudden you're going to see the sweeping vista of the Oregon coast that is really unparalleled. The watercolor is different. It starts to get to that shade of blue that becomes so much more common with views you're going to get in California if you are going to be continuing, which unfortunately on this trip I will not. But it is just spectacular. There's a great vista point with a visitor center and restrooms that you can stop and get some great pictures there. I certainly did that. Got some videos as well. And then you've got this really fun 6.5 mile climby and descendy kind of ride that takes you to Humbug Mountain State Park, which has quickly become up the charts as to one of my favorites, not just because it's beautiful and it's tree filled, but the showers are really nice here. I mean, it's the little things, right? But it's a great state park and a great place to lay your head down for the night. Now, for me, This is my second to last night going southbound. I've got one more day tomorrow that's south of here, and that is at Harris Beach State Park, just north of Brookings. Now, as many of you know, I am going to be making a little bit of a southerly trip beyond there. My intention is to go to Harris Beach, if they will let me check in, unload, and ride unloaded down through Brookings. Maybe grab a bite to eat there if I'm feeling it, and then go to the California border and then come back to camp later that night. In between here and there, not insignificant terrain. It is climby and rolly, and there's one really decent-sized hill outside of a town called Gold Beach, which is about 20-25 miles south of here. Gold Beach is going to be my sort of mid-morning snack kind of a place. There's a great little bookstore, cafe, coffee shop, bakery kind of thing going on there, and they have the best, I'll say it again, the best cinnamon rolls in the world. They are amazing. I'm really hoping to get there early enough that there aren't any that are missing. I'll get there. It'll be awesome. It'll be epic. Calf up, carb up, fuel up, and then hit that hill, get up and over it, and then eventually get all the way to Harris Beach State Park and then unload. And as I said, get to the border, get my selfie, and come on back. It's been a fun ride so far, and I think I'm a little more energized because it was a fun group tonight, which I haven't had on this trip quite yet. I've had some interesting folks that I've talked to, but just on the whole, it was a really energetic, good group, and included a couple that I've been kind of at least saying hi to along the way. So it's sort of like that, just amped everything up. So that's kind of fun. So looking forward to tomorrow's ride, the challenges of it, and then, of course, just kind of meeting the initial goal, which is hitting that California border and coming on back. Statistics for days 2 and 3 of the Oregon Coast Loop ride. Bus miles logged 0. Bike miles biked 103. Campsites 2. Campsites I liked 1. Number of references to liking bands' older stuff as a metaphor for saying a campground used to be way better 1. Nights interrupted by blood-curdling screams 1. Number of devils conquered 7. Flats 0. Mirrors lost 1. Days of tour extended 1. And we like to end off the show, as always, with a big thank you to the supporters of the show who are members of the Pedalshift Society. If you like what you hear, you can help maintain Pedalshift as an independent, listener-supported voice while expanding the offerings. We're talking $1, $2, $5 a month. Helps with the cost of hosting the podcast and the website. You can do it for a bit and cancel anytime. One-shot support is welcome as well. If you're not into the small monthly thing, check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Ethan Georgie, Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lane, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Josiah Matthews, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittis, Thomas Skadow, Seth Krieger, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Noah Schroer, Harry Telgadas, John Sikorsky, Richard Killian, Chris Barron, Brian Wren, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Paul Mulvey, Stuart Buchan, Todd Stutz, Mr. T, Roxy Arning, Nathan Poulton, Harry Hugel, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Ruth Divorcey, Michelle Miller, Matthew Lewis, Michael Baker, Billy Crafton, Paul Culbertson, Scott Culbertson, Matt Perry, Danielle Jepson, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Bobby Ruppel, Roy Everett, Greg Braithwaite, John Mayer, William Cairns, Sandy Pizzio, Richard Patch, Mark Messer, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Dave Roll, Joseph Quinn, John Baxter, and Susan Brewster. And thanks also to all past contributors and anonymous contributors for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.